The smell came every morning at dawn. Baby powder. Faint. Fresh. Rising through the vent above my stove like a ghost I could not name. For 3 years, I told myself it was memory. June bathing Sophie as an infant. Scent trapped in the walls the way love lingers after someone leaves. But memory fades. This smell grew stronger, and when Graciela pressed her nose against that sealed door upstairs, she confirmed what my gut already knew. Something was alive in that room. Something that smelled like a child. I am deeply grateful you are here with me right now. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you ignored what your own senses were telling you? Drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from. It helps me know I am not telling this story into the dark. One important note. Parts of this narrative have been adjusted for clarity and emotional impact. Any similarities to actual individuals or locations are coincidental, but the lessons here are worth every second of your time. That Wednesday morning had started the way every morning started since I retired. Early. 5:45. The kind of hour that belongs to bakers and fishermen and old men who no longer need alarm clocks because their bodies remember decades of kitchen shifts that began before the sun. I stood in the kitchen of our home on Lipers Fork Road in Franklin, Tennessee. The same kitchen where June used to roll biscuit dough on the marble counter every Sunday while humming hymns from her mother in Knoxville. The same kitchen where my granddaughter Sophie once stood on a step stool beside me, her small hands covered in flour, asking why bread needed to rest before baking. That was 3 years ago. Sophie was 6 then, full of questions about rising dough and melting butter and why vanilla smelled different in the bottle than in the cake. She used to press her nose against the oven door glass and inhale, eyes closed, counting the seconds between each breath, the way I taught her to time a reduction. She learned my kitchen the way other children learn playgrounds. By touch. By taste. By the particular language of heat and scent that only a chef's grandchild would speak fluently at 6 years old. Now she was supposedly in Santa Fe at the Arts Academy, a gifted visual arts program that Mia had researched and enrolled her in without much discussion. Phone calls every Sunday. Audio only because Sophie found cameras overwhelming. Report cards every semester. Photographs of art studios and desert landscapes. Everything perfectly normal. Everything perfectly managed. I reached for the coffee. Dark roast from Honest Coffee Roasters on 5th Avenue. The same blend June and I walked for on Saturday mornings before her legs gave out. I measured 2 scoops into the French press, poured water from the kettle I had set to boil 4 minutes earlier. Timing. A chef's life is built on timing. 4 minutes for the water. 4 minutes for the steep. 40 years measured in intervals no longer than a reduction of balsamic. The kitchen filled with coffee. Dark. Bitter. Grounding. But underneath it, threading through like a note that did not belong, was the other smell. Baby powder. Sweet. Clean. Unmistakable. Rising from the vent above the stove the way steam rises from a stockpot. Every single morning. For 3 years. I used to love that smell. In the early months after Sophie left, it felt like comfort. Like June was still here, still dusting powder across a baby's skin after bath time. June used Johnson's. Only Johnson's. She said every other brand smelled chemical. Johnson's smelled like real childhood. Like safety. When I caught that scent each morning, I would close my eyes and let myself believe June was upstairs with Sophie. That nothing had changed. That the women I loved were still above me, still filling this house with the scent of living. But June had been gone 4 years. Sophie had been in Santa Fe for 3. And scent does not work that way. I spent 40 years in professional kitchens. I trained my nose the way a pianist trains fingers. I could identify 200 ingredients blindfolded. I could tell you whether a stock had simmered 6 hours or 7 by smell alone. I could detect a single burned garlic clove in a pot of 60. And I knew that smell does not linger 3 years in an empty room. Scent molecules dissipate. They break down. Fresh baby powder has a half-life of maybe 72 hours before it fades into background. What I smelled every morning was not 3 years old. It was fresh, applied within hours. I knew this. Some part of me had always known. The same part that noticed the smell was strongest at dawn, between 5:30 and 6:15, as though someone upstairs had just completed a routine involving powder on skin. But knowing and acknowledging are different kitchens entirely. One is prep. The other is service. And I had stayed in prep for 3 years because stepping into service meant asking questions whose answers might burn down everything I had left. I poured coffee into the blue ceramic mug Sophie painted for me at a pottery studio on Main Street. Lopsided handle. Uneven glaze. The word Grandpa, in her 6-year-old handwriting, letters tilting right because she was left-handed. I drank from it every morning. Every single morning for 3 years. I sat at the kitchen table. The oak table I built in 1994, when June wanted something sturdy enough for Thanksgiving and 30 years of family dinners. White oak. Mortise and tenon joints. No nails, just wood fitted against wood so precisely you could not slide a hair between the seams. June called it the most honest piece of furniture she had ever seen. No shortcuts, no deception, just craft. I looked at the ceiling. White. Smooth. Somewhere above it, that room. The one Mia sealed 3 years ago. Toxic wood preservative, she said. Chemicals from June's antique furniture. Dangerous to breathe. She had the door reinforced. Said it needed to stay sealed until professional remediation. Said it could take years. I believed her. The way you believe, family. The way you believe anyone who speaks with confidence and offers explanations before you think to ask. I believed because the alternative was unthinkable, and because my nose, trained as it was, could not overcome the simple human desire to trust the people sleeping under your roof. But memory fades with time. It does not grow stronger. And this smell, every morning for 3 years, had only grown. I had not finished that thought when my phone rang. The sound split the kitchen silence, the way a timer cuts through a busy service line. Sharp, demanding. The screen read, Graciela Mendo. 9:20 on a Wednesday morning. Graciela had cleaned our home every other Tuesday for 16 years. She never called during a job. Never. In 8 months of cleaning this house, she communicated only through texts, quick professional messages. A phone call meant something had broken routine. And in a kitchen, when routine breaks, something has either boiled over or caught fire. Mr. Whitfield. Her voice came barely above a whisper. I need to tell you something. I am upstairs in the hallway by that sealed room. I was vacuuming, and the vacuum bumped against the bottom of the door. There is a gap, maybe half an inch, and when I bent down I smelled something. She paused. Baby powder, she said. Fresh, not old. Fresh like someone applied it to skin within the last hour. I have cleaned enough homes with babies to know that smell. That is not a chemical. That is Johnson's baby powder on a living child. Nothing in the physical world shifted. But something behind my ribs realigned. The way a dish comes together in the final seconds of plating. Every element suddenly in its correct position. 3 years of mornings. 3 years of that ghost through my vent. And now Graciela, on her knees in my hallway, confirming with her nose what mine had been whispering since the first morning. Stay where you are, I told her. Do not touch the door. I am coming home. I sat in my truck at the farmer's market on Columbia Avenue for 6 minutes, both hands on the wheel. Engine off. A chef does not rush into a burning kitchen. A chef assesses, identifies the source, calculates. Then I drove home. Mia's white Audi sat in its usual spot. She was supposed to be at Pilates until 10:30. Home early. I walked through the front door. Graciela stood in the kitchen doorway, her supplies packed, her face tight. She looked at me and shook her head once. Small. A gesture that said she sent me away from there. Mia appeared from the hallway. Her smile arrived first. Bright. Automatic. The kind of smile I had seen 1,000 times on restaurant managers greeting difficult guests. "Dad, you are home early." "I forgot something," I said. Graciela mentioned an unusual smell upstairs. Near the sealed room. Mia's smile held, but her left hand moved to her right wrist. A small adjustment of her watch band lasting less than a second. Most people would miss it. But I spent 40 years reading line cooks under pressure. Watching hands for micro-movements that reveal when someone is about to lie. "Oh, that room." She shook her head with a small laugh. "The wood preservative off-gases in warm weather. It has this sweet, almost powdery smell when the temperature rises. Completely chemical. That is why the door stays sealed." She turned to Graciela. "I am sorry if it worried you. Please do not go near that door. The fumes are genuinely hazardous." Graciela nodded. Polite. But her eyes found mine for 1/2 second. That glance held everything her mouth could not say. "That is not chemicals, Mr. Whitfield. You know it and I know it." Mia watched Graciela leave, then turned to me. Her posture relaxed. The performance settling into neutral. "I will call the remediation company today, Dad." She kissed my cheek and disappeared toward her bedroom. I heard her door close, then the faint sound of her phone keyboard. Texting quickly, I stood alone in the kitchen. Morning light caught dust motes floating above the counter. I watched them drift, suspended. The way certainty feels right, before it hardens into something you cannot unfeel. I knew 3 things with absolute clarity. First, Graciela confirmed what my nose had whispered for 3 years. Baby powder. Fresh. Human. Alive. Second, Mia had lied. Not clumsily. Smoothly. With the practiced ease of someone who keeps the explanation polished and ready, like a server memorizing daily specials, she had prepared for this question. She had always known someone might eventually smell it. Third, wood preservative does not smell like baby powder. It never has. In 40 years of professional kitchens, I worked beside every chemical used on wood. Linseed oil, tung oil, polyurethane, turpentine, shellac. Every single one smells sharp, acrid, solvent-based. Not one smells sweet. Not one smells powdery. Not one smells like a nursery. Mia's explanation was not just wrong, it was impossible. And she delivered it without hesitation, without the slight pause honest people make when genuinely trying to identify an unfamiliar smell. Her answer was designed for people who do not spend their lives surrounded by scent. People who would accept wood preservative because it sounds technical enough to discourage further questions. But I was not those people. I was a chef. My nose was my instrument. The tool I trusted above my eyes, above my ears, above my own memory. That night I lay in bed. House dark. I pressed my palm against the wall beside my headboard. Cool plaster. On the other side, the hallway. Above it, the staircase. Above the staircase, that door. And behind that door, something warm, something alive. Something that smelled like Johnson's baby powder because someone was caring for it. Feeding it. Keeping it secret. The only child connected to this house, the only child connected to Mia, was my granddaughter Sophie, supposedly 6 hours away in Santa Fe. Painting. Thriving. But thriving children do not live behind sealed doors. And baby powder does not apply itself at 5:30 in the morning to skin that does not exist. Something on the other side of these walls was alive, something warm, and it smelled like a child I had not held in 3 years. I did not sleep that night. By 1:45 in the morning, I gave up pretending and went downstairs. When a chef cannot think clearly, he cooks. Not for anyone. Not for a purpose. Just for the motion. The rhythm of hands doing what they have done 10,000 times before. I pulled flour from the cabinet. Salt. Yeast. Warm water from the tap. and I began kneading bread dough on the marble counter at 2 in the morning because my hands needed work while my mind turned over everything Graciela had confirmed 6 hours earlier. The dough pressed back against my palms. Elastic. Alive. The way all good dough feels when the gluten develops and the structure begins to form beneath your fingers. June used to say I talk to my dough the way other men talk to their dogs. Quiet conversations, patient repetitions. Come on now. A little more. Almost there. June. My wife. For 38 years. The woman who filled this kitchen with hymns and biscuit flour and the smell of coffee cake every Saturday morning from 1986 until the Tuesday she collapsed right here. Right where I was standing now, 4 years ago. November. I was reducing a cranberry glaze for Thanksgiving practice when I heard the sound. Not a crash. A settling. Like a bag of flour sliding off the counter. I turned, and she was on the floor. Left hand still holding the wooden spoon she had been using to stir apple butter on the stove. Her eyes open but looking somewhere I could not follow. The stroke took most of her in those first 4 seconds. The hospital kept her body breathing for 3 more days. But June left that Tuesday afternoon on my kitchen floor with a wooden spoon in her hand and apple butter burning on the stove. Her last words came on the 3rd day. Hospice bed in our living room. Her hand in mine felt like parchment paper. Thin. Dry. Ready to tear. Feed them, Arthur. All of them. That is how you love. She said it once. Clear. Then her eyes closed, and she was gone, and the kitchen went silent for the first time in 38 years. I kept cooking. Every morning. Because she told me to. Because stopping meant admitting the kitchen belonged to no one now. Because the smell of coffee and butter and bread was the only prayer I knew how to make. 8 months after June passed, Mia called from Denver, her voice soft with concern. Dad, Brendan and I have been talking. You should not be alone in that big house. We want to move in. Sophie would love being close to her grandpa. And honestly, I worry about you eating properly without June. They arrived in July. Mia and Sophie. Brendan stayed in Denver for work, flying to Franklin on weekends when his schedule allowed. At first it was beautiful. Sophie was 6, legs too short for the counter stool, hands too small for my chef's knife, but she stood beside me every morning on her step stool wearing the tiny apron June had sewn from leftover curtain fabric. White cotton with small blue flowers. Grandpa, why does bread need to sleep? Because the yeast is working, sweetheart. It needs time to grow. Like how you grow when you sleep? Exactly like that. And she would press her nose against the oven door glass and breathe in, counting seconds the way I taught her. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3. Sophie developed a habit that first summer. Her bedroom was directly above the kitchen. Old house, thin floors. Sound traveled easily between levels. Every morning when she woke up and smelled breakfast cooking below, she would knock on the floor. Her signal. A game we invented together. She would knock the same number of times as her age. 6 years old, 6 knocks. Tap, 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 tap. It meant I am awake, and I am hungry, and I know you are down there, Grandpa. I would knock back on the ceiling with the handle of a wooden spoon. 6 times. It meant, I hear you, and breakfast is almost ready, and I love you. 14 months of that rhythm. 14 months of 6 knocks becoming the heartbeat of my mornings. 14 months of Sophie learning to crack eggs with one hand, to measure by feel rather than cup, to salt pasta water until it tasted like the sea. 14 months of the kitchen being full again, of June's absence softened by her granddaughter's presence, of feeling like the promise I made on that hospice bed was being kept one breakfast at a time. Then one evening in September, Mia sat me down at the kitchen table. Her face arranged in that particular expression people wear when they have rehearsed what they are about to say. The corners of her mouth turned up slightly. Sympathetic. Prepared. Dad, I found an incredible opportunity for Sophie. The Santa Fe Arts Academy. Top gifted visual arts program in the Southwest. They only accept 15 students per year, and Sophie tested in the 98th percentile. I did not know Sophie had been tested. Mia smiled. I wanted it to be a surprise. Brendan is thrilled. Sophie is 6, I said. Santa Fe is 6 hours away. They have phone calls every week, Mia said. And the program is specifically designed for young artists. She will flourish there. The desert light alone is supposed to transform the way children see color. She had brochures, testimonials, an answer for every objection before I could form it, and Brendan agreed. My son who trusted his wife the way I once trusted June. Completely. Without question. So Sophie le gen. Gen they. Gen 20 they. Gen 20. Gen 24. Gen 2 I. Gen 20. Gen 20. Gen 20. Gen 23. In 23. Or that is what I believed. Mia drove her to Santa Fe on a Sunday in March. I stood on the porch watching the car pull away, her mouth forming words I could not hear through glass. She was holding the small blue apron June had made, clutched against her chest like a blanket. I waved until the car turned the corner of Leiper's Fork Road and disappeared behind the Henderson's oak tree. 3 years ago. 1,095 days. 156 Sunday phone calls. Audio only. Sophie's voice telling me about painting classes and desert sunsets and a teacher named Miss Protter Rodriguez who said her use of color was exceptional. I listened every week. I asked questions. I told her about the farmer's market and the new rosemary plant on the windowsill and the cardinal that visited the magnolia tree every morning at 7. I told her I loved her. I told her June's birthday cake recipe was waiting for her whenever she came home. But I never smelled her shampoo, never felt flour on her fingers, never heard 6 knocks on my ceiling becoming 7, becoming 8, becoming 9. 3 years of loving my granddaughter through a speaker. 3 years of trusting that the voice was real because Mia said it was. Because she was family. Because June's memory kept whispering that family means trust. But lying in that kitchen at 2 in the morning, hands deep in bread dough, I understood something terrible. Trust is not a feeling. Trust is a choice. And I had been choosing blindly for 3 years, choosing comfort over curiosity, choosing Mia's smooth answers over the questions living in my gut, choosing to believe my granddaughter was painting sunsets in New Mexico because the alternative was too monstrous to hold. June would have seen it. She would have looked at Mia across this table and known, the way she always knew. Instinctively. Immediately. The way I read a sauce, by smell. June read people. But June was gone. And I was just a chef. Good with my hands. Terrible with people. 66 years old and only now understanding that the house I seasoned with love could hold flavors I never put there. Tomorrow, I would stop trusting and start tasting, because that is what chefs do. We taste everything. We trust nothing until it touches our tongue, and we never serve a dish we have not tested ourselves. Thursday morning I woke at 5:15 and did something I had not done in 40 years of cooking. I walked into my kitchen and did not turn on the stove. No coffee. No kettle. No flame. I stood in the center of the room in bare feet on cold tile, and I closed my eyes and I breathed. Just breathed. Slow. Deep. Through my nose the way I used to calibrate my senses before tasting a new dish at the restaurant. Before any flavors entered the picture, I would stand in the walk-in cooler and breathe clean cold air until my palate reset to 0. Baseline. Neutral. Ready to detect the faintest deviation from where things should be. The kitchen at 5:15 smelled like what an empty kitchen should smell like. Residual coffee oil from yesterday's French press. The faint mineral note of granite countertops. A whisper of dish soap from the sink. The woody warmth of the oak table. Normal. Correct. Baseline established. I stood still. Waited. Watched the clock on the microwave count minutes. 5:22. 5:31. 5:39. Nothing. The vent above the stove remained silent, delivering only the neutral temperature-regulated air from the ductwork. No powder. No sweetness. No ghost. 5:47. There it was, arriving the way a new ingredient enters a stockpot. Not suddenly, gradually, building from nothing into something undeniable. Baby powder. Johnson's. Sweet, talc-based, unmistakable, drifting down through the vent in a soft current that brushed my face like a whisper. Fresh. Minutes old at most. Someone above me had just applied baby powder to skin at 5:47 in the morning. Mia's bedroom was on the ground floor. Her alarm did not sound until 7. She was asleep 30 feet away behind a closed door. So who was awake above my kitchen applying baby powder before dawn? Who was up there performing a morning routine that involved caring for skin? Whose skin? I opened my eyes, looked at the vent. A 10 by 6-inch metal rectangle painted the same white as the ceiling. I had walked beneath it 10,000 mornings without paying it attention. It was just ductwork, just airflow, just the respiratory system of an old house breathing between floors. But respiratory systems carry information. Every breath tells you what lives inside the body. And this house was exhaling baby powder at 5:47 every morning like a patient whose blood work reveals what no external exam can see. I did not touch the vent yet. Not until Mia left. She departed at 8 for her Pilates class. I watched her Audi disappear around the bend of Leiper's Fork Road before I moved. Then I went to the garage and retrieved a Phillips head screwdriver from my toolbox. Back in the kitchen, I pulled a step stool beneath the vent and climbed up. My knees protested, but my hands were steady. Hands never forget. I removed 4 screws. Set the vent cover on the counter. The rectangular opening breathed cool air against my face. I leaned in close, pressed my nose to the edge of the duct the way a sommelier presses his nose into a wine glass. And I inhaled. Deep. Slow. Reading the air the way I read a consommé for clarity. Baby powder. Strongest note. Still present. Fading but definite. Beneath it, something waxy. Crayon. The particular petroleum paraffin smell of Crayola crayons that every parent and grandparent recognizes from 100 kitchen table coloring sessions. Beneath the crayon, something else. Fainter. Warmer. Biological. The unmistakable scent of a living child's scalp after sleep. That particular blend of natural oils, warmth, and innocence that no synthetic chemical can replicate. I had smelled it 1,000 times leaning over Sophie's crib as an infant. Over her hair as she sat beside me cooking. On the crown of her head when I kissed her goodnight. I was not smelling memory. I was not smelling residue. I was smelling a living, breathing child who had slept above my kitchen last night and woken this morning and been powdered, and was now sitting in that room with crayons, while her grandfather stood on a step stool 12 feet below with his nose pressed into a 12 vent and his heart cracking open like an egg against a bowl. I replaced the vent cover, tightened the screws, wiped my fingerprints from the metal out of some instinct I could not explain. Then I went outside. The recycling bins sat at the side of the house waiting for Thursday pickup. I had never gone through our waste before. It felt like a violation. But June's voice echoed in my memory. Taste everything, Arthur. Trust nothing until it touches your tongue. I opened the first bin. Kitchen waste. Coffee grounds, vegetable scraps, eggshells. Normal for a household of 2 adults. The second bin held recyclables. I sorted through cardboard and plastic with the systematic attention I once used to inventory a walk-in cooler before service. Every item cataloged. Every expiration date checked. Every quantity noted. 3 empty cartons of Horizon organic whole milk. The kind with the cartoon cow. The kind designed for children. 2 crushed boxes of goldfish crackers. Not regular crackers. The small fish-shaped ones marketed to kids aged 2 through 10. One empty children's Tylenol bottle, grape-flavored, for ages 4 through 11. And at the bottom, wedged beneath a flattened Amazon box, 4 banana peels. Each one small. Each one bearing a specific marking I recognized immediately. They had been sliced lengthwise before peeling, cut into smaller sections. The way you prepare a banana for a young child who might choke on a full piece. The way June used to prepare them for Sophie at age 3 and 4. The way I still prepared them in my memory when I thought about feeding her. I arranged each item on the concrete beside the bin. Milk, crackers, medicine, bananas cut for small hands. Evidence laid out like ingredients before a recipe begins. Mise en place. A chef's first principle. Everything measured, everything identified, everything placed exactly where it belongs before the heat goes on. I returned to the kitchen, pulled my old leather notebook from the drawer beside the stove, the one June gave me on my 60th birthday, lined pages filled with 40 years of recipes and measurements and temperatures. I opened to a blank page, wrote Thursday at the top. Below it, I listed every item from the recycling bin, every cent from the vent, every measurement my nose had taken that morning. The way I had documented every dish, every technique, every discovery for 4 decades, I was no longer guessing. I was no longer hoping the smell was memory. I was doing what I should have done 3 years ago, reading the recipe as written, not as I wished it to be. Mise en place. Everything in its place, including the truth. Friday morning I cooked breakfast the way I used to cook for a full restaurant floor. Pancakes from scratch, buttermilk batter with real vanilla bean, and a pinch of nutmeg, the way June taught me our first year of marriage. 6 strips of applewood smoked bacon laid across the cast-iron skillet in perfect parallel lines. 4 eggs scrambled soft with chives from the garden. Fresh squeezed orange juice from the navels I picked up at the market Wednesday, before the world tilted. Enough food for 4 people. Maybe 5. A deliberate excess for a household of 2. Mia came downstairs at 7:30. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweater, hair pulled back, face fresh. She looked at the counter spread and laughed. "Dad, are you feeding an army?" I felt inspired. I said, "Help yourself." She took 1 pancake, 1 strip of bacon, a small glass of juice. 8 standing at the island, the way busy people eat when they believe food is fuel rather than language. "Delicious as always, Dad." She kissed my cheek. "I have errands this morning. Back by noon. I will wrap up the leftovers for later. Do not worry about cleanup." She loaded a plate with the remaining pancakes, the bacon, the eggs, covered it with foil, placed it in the refrigerator. Then she left. Her Audi pulled away at 7:52. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and my notebook, and I waited. At noon, she returned with shopping bags. Normal routine. We ate lunch together. A simple salad I prepared while she sorted her purchases in the hallway. At 2:15, I opened the refrigerator. The foil-covered plate was gone. Not in the sink, not in the dishwasher, not on the counter. I checked the trash. No foil. No plate scraps. The food had simply vanished from the refrigerator between 7:52 in the morning and 2:15 in the afternoon. Mia had been out from 7:52 until noon. I was in the kitchen the entire time. Nobody entered the house. The food did not walk away, which meant Mia took it somewhere between noon and 2:15 while I was briefly in the garage sorting my toolbox. Took it upstairs. To the room. To feed someone who could not come down. And feed herself. I drove to Kroger on Main Street at 3 o'clock. At the customer service counter, I asked to print a history of purchases on our household loyalty card. The young woman behind the counter typed for 30 seconds and handed me 4 pages of receipts covering the last 3 months. I sat in my truck in the parking lot and read them the way I used to read supplier invoices at the restaurant. Line by line. item by item, looking for discrepancies the way I looked for billing errors that could bleed a kitchen dry over months. The pattern was immediate. Every week, without exception, the same items appeared. Horizon organic whole milk, 2 cartons. Goldfish crackers, 2 boxes. Annie's macaroni and cheese, 3 boxes. Apple juice boxes, 1 12-pack. Children's multivitamins, 1 bottle every 6 weeks. Johnson's baby powder, 1 bottle every 4 weeks. Children's shampoo, tear-free, strawberry scented. And every 2 weeks from the Target on Murfreesboro Road, a rotating selection from the children's section, coloring books, crayons, puzzle packs, small clothing items in sizes marked 6 to 8. I stared at that last detail until the parking lot blurred around me. Size 6 to 8. For a child approximately 7 to 9 years old. Sophie would be 9 now. She turned 9 last month, October 15th. Mia had sent a photo to our family group chat. Sophie smiling in front of a birthday cake at what appeared to be a school cafeteria. Candles lit. Friends around her. Normal. Managed. Perfect. I photographed every page of the receipts. Then I checked our shared bank account on my phone. The numbers confirmed what the loyalty card revealed. Kroger charges averaging $180 per week. Far too much for 2 adults who ate simply. Target charges of $90 to $100 every 2 weeks. Always categorized as household essentials. I had never questioned these amounts because I trusted Mia with the household budget the way I once trusted my sous chef with inventory. Delegation built on faith. Faith that was hemorrhaging like an overfilled pot, left unwatched on high heat. I drove home. Parked in the driveway. Walked inside, with a calm I did not feel. Mia was on the couch reading. "Everything okay, Dad? You look tired." "Fine," I said. "Just a long drive. Thought I would turn in early tonight." She smiled. "Sweet dreams, Dad." I went to bed at 9. But I did not sleep. I lay on top of the covers, fully clothed with the bedroom door open 2 inches. Enough to hear the hallway. Enough to monitor any movement between the ground floor and the staircase that led to the second story. The same staircase I built myself in 1995 when we converted the attic into additional rooms. 12 steps, pine treads that I knew by sound. The way I knew every burner on my stovetop by heat signature. The house settled into darkness. Mia's television murmured behind her closed door until 10:40. Then, silence. The refrigerator hummed. The furnace clicked on and off in its programmed cycle. Normal sounds. The house breathing. At 1:43 in the morning, Mia's door opened. I heard the particular click of her handle. The soft compression of carpet under careful feet. Not toward the bathroom, toward the back of the house. The rear hallway. The staircase. Step 1. Step 2. Step 3. Each one a sound I recognized. The way a conductor recognizes each instrument in an orchestra. She was climbing slowly, carrying something. The slight unevenness in her footfall told me her arms held weight. A tray, perhaps. A plate. Step 7 creaked despite her care. Step 10 groaned. Step 12. And she was at the top. A pause. Then a sound I could not identify from this distance. Electronic. A short sequence of tones. A keypad. Then, a door opening. The heavier sound of the reinforced door she had installed 3 years ago. Then nothing. Silence. For 23 minutes I lay in the dark counting each second the way I count reduction time. Precise. Absolute. 23 minutes of my daughter-in-law behind a sealed door at 1:43 in the morning, doing something that required a keypad entry and 23 minutes of time. Then the door again. The keypad. Steps descending. 12. 10. 7. 3. 2. 1. Hallway. Her bedroom door clicking shut. I pulled my notebook from the nightstand drawer. Wrote the time. 1:43 to 2:06. 23 minutes. Carrying something up. Nothing audible coming down, except her own weight. Someone above my kitchen needed feeding at 1:43 in the morning. Someone who could not come downstairs. Someone behind a door that required a code to open. I wrote one more line in the notebook. Turned to the next blank page. Friday complete. Tomorrow I would measure further. Because timing is everything in a kitchen. And mine was not yet right. Saturday morning I sat in my Chevy Silverado in the parking lot of the Franklin Public Library on Columbia Avenue. Engine off. Windows up. The cab smelled like it always did. Pine shavings from a cutting board I transported last spring, and motor oil from the bottle that leaked behind the passenger seat 2 years ago. Familiar. Grounding. I needed that grounding because what I was about to do would either confirm everything or prove me a paranoid old man whose nose had finally betrayed him after 40 years of faithful service. I pulled out my phone and searched Santa Fe Arts Academy, New Mexico. The website appeared immediately. Warm desert tones. Photos of children. Painting in sun-flooded studios. A mission statement about nurturing young visual minds. It looked professional. Legitimate. Exactly the kind of school a loving mother would select for a gifted daughter. I dialed the main office number. My thumb hovered for 4 seconds before I pressed call. Good morning, Santa Fe Arts Academy. This is Denise speaking. How may I help you? My name is Arthur Whitfield, I said. My voice came out steadier than my hands. I am calling about my granddaughter, Sophie Whitfield. She has been enrolled there approximately 3 years. I would like to check on her attendance for this term. A pause. Keyboard sounds. Let me pull up our student database, sir. Could you spell the last name? Whitfield. First name Sophie. She would be 9 years old. 3rd grade or equivalent. More typing. A longer pause. I could hear the woman breathing through her nose. The particular rhythm of someone searching carefully. Sir, I am not finding any student by that name in our current enrollment. Let me check our archived records. Silence. Then, no, sir. I have searched back 5 years. We have no record of a Sophie Whitfield ever enrolled at this institution. Are you certain you have the correct school? The truck cab contracted around me. The familiar smells compressed into something claustrophobic. I am certain, I said. Could there be an error? A different spelling, perhaps? Sir, I have checked every variation. Whitfield. 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 No match anywhere in our system. I am very sorry. Would you like our admissions office in case there was a registration issue? No. Thank you, Denise. You have been very helpful. I ended the call. My hands rested on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Perfectly still, the way they rest on a cutting board before the first cut of service, still because the mind is working, calculating, measuring what comes next. I called 2 more schools. Programs Mia had mentioned casually over the years in conversation. Oh, Sophie's friend goes to Taos Valley Arts. The Georgia O'Keeffe School was our second choice. I called both. Neither had ever enrolled a Sophie Whitfield. Neither had ever heard the name. 3 schools. 3 empty databases. 3 confirmations that my granddaughter had never existed in the state of New Mexico. I opened my photos. The family group chat held 3 years of images Mia sent monthly. Sophie at an art show. Sophie painting outdoors. Sophie with 2 girls in front of a studio building. I selected the most recent. Sophie standing in a sunlit room with canvases on the wall behind her, a paintbrush in her hand, wearing a smock smeared with color. I opened my browser. Navigated to Google reverse image search, uploaded the photo. Results appeared in 4 seconds. The studio in the background was a stock photograph. Available on 3 different websites for $12. The canvases on the wall appeared in 14 other search results. None of them connected to Santa Fe. The lighting, the angle, the composition, all purchased. All staged. all fabricated to look like a girl in an art studio, without actually being a girl in an art studio. I checked a second photo. Sophie at an outdoor painting class with desert mountains behind her. Stock. The mountains were Sedona, Arizona, not Santa Fe. Available for $8 from a photography licensing site. I checked the birthday photo from last month. Sophie smiling with a cake. The cafeteria in the background appeared in 6 other search results. An elementary school in Ohio. Not New Mexico. My hands finally trembled. Not from cold. Not from age. From the weight of certainty settling into my bones, the way heat settles into cast iron. Slow, complete, permanent. I opened the most recent report card Mia had forwarded to Brendan 2 months ago. Sophie Whitfield, Grade 3, Santa Fe Arts Academy. Exceptional marks. Teacher comments, praising her color theory and spatial awareness. I zoomed in on the header. The school logo was blurred at the edges. Slightly pixelated. I pulled up the Academy's actual website and compared. Their official logo was crisp. Vector-based. Clean lines. The logo on Sophie's report card was a screenshot. Compressed. Degraded. Copied from the website and pasted into a document someone created on a laptop. I set the phone on the dashboard. Pressed both palms against my eyes until I saw constellations. 3 years. 3 years of photographs purchased online for the price of a cup of coffee. 3 years of report cards fabricated on a computer. 3 years of a school that had never heard my granddaughter's name. Sophie had never gone to Santa Fe. Had never held a paintbrush in a sun-flooded studio. Never painted desert sunsets with friends whose names I could not remember because they did not exist. My granddaughter had never left this house, and the evidence had cost $12 per image from a stock photography website. I drove home at the speed limit. Parked in the driveway. Walked inside. Mia stood at the kitchen island, chopping tomatoes for a sauce. She smiled without looking up. "Hey, Dad. Want me to make lunch?" I thought I would do a quick pasta. I looked at her hands moving the knife with precision. At her face composed and pleasant. At her eyes focused on the cutting board. Nothing in her expression suggested she was a woman hiding a child 12 feet above this kitchen. "I will make the rigatoni," I said. I pulled dried pasta from the cabinet. Filled a pot with water. Set it on the flame. We cooked together side by side the way we had 100 times. 2 people preparing lunch on a Saturday afternoon. I salted the water, crushed garlic, heated olive oil until it shimmered. Normal. Domestic. Quiet. She had no idea that the man standing beside her had just called 3 schools in New Mexico and discovered that his granddaughter did not exist in any of them. She had no idea that the birthday photographs she sent last month cost less than a sandwich. We ate rigatoni at the kitchen table. I complimented her tomato sauce. She thanked me with a warm smile. 2 people sharing pasta on a Saturday. One smiling because her secrets felt safe. The other smiling because he had just learned they were not. 2 could play this game. But only one of us knew the recipe had changed. And a chef never lets anyone see the fire until the dish is ready to serve. This dish was far from finished. Sunday morning my phone buzzed at 7:15. The name on the screen stopped me mid-reach for the coffee grinder. Dolores Kwan, June's closest friend for 26 years. The woman who sat beside me through every hour of the funeral. Who brought homemade juk every Sunday for 3 months afterward because she said grief should not skip meals. Who managed money the way I managed a kitchen. With precision, with respect, with the understanding that numbers, like temperatures, must be exact, or the whole thing collapses. Dolores never called early. She was a woman of rigid schedule. Tea at 7, emails at 7:30, clients at 9. A 7:15 call meant something had cracked through her routine. Something that could not wait for proper hours. Arthur. Her voice was controlled. Tight. The way she sounded when delivering difficult news to clients whose portfolios had bled overnight. "Can you meet me today?" "Not at your house." somewhere private. What is wrong, Dolores? Not over the phone. Frothy monkey on Main Street. Can you be there by 8:30? I can be there by 8:15. The drive to Main Street took 7 minutes. I parked behind the bookstore and walked. The morning was cool for October in Tennessee. Low 50s. The kind of air that carries sound farther than it should. That makes you feel exposed. Frothy Monkey was quiet. Sunday morning crowd still sleeping off Saturday nights. 2 baristas behind the counter. A young woman with a laptop near the window. I claimed a table in the back corner beneath a chalkboard menu that changed with the seasons. October featured pumpkin spice and apple cider options. June would have ordered the cider. She always chose fruit over spice. Dolores arrived at 8:22. She carried a leather portfolio and wore the expression of a woman who had slept poorly for several days. She sat without ordering, set the portfolio between us like a cutting board before butchering. "Arthur," she said, "how much do you know about Sophie's education trust?" I knew the basics. June started it the year Sophie was born. A combination of life insurance, savings accumulated over decades, every birthday check from relatives, every Christmas bonus I earned at the restaurant, all funneled into a trust account managed by Dolores's firm. For Sophie's future, art school, college, a first apartment, whatever she needed to build a life. 1.9 million, I said. June told me before she passed. Said it would cover everything Sophie would ever need to start strong. Dolores nodded. She opened the portfolio and pulled out a folder thick with highlighted documents. June asked me to serve as secondary trustee. Oversight. Make sure everything was managed properly. Brendan was primary trustee as Sophie's father. Everything was fine for the first 2 years after June passed. She spread papers across the table like evidence at an arraignment. 8 months ago, Mia requested a transfer of management authority. She told Brendan the fund needed restructuring, better returns. A new financial advisor she had found through a colleague. Brendan signed because Mia asked him to. Because he trusts her. Dolores's voice sharpened on those last words, like a knife finding its edge on a steel. Once she had sole access, the withdrawals began. She slid a spreadsheet toward me. The numbers descended the page in a column of devastation. March, 60,000. April, 90,000. May, 110,000. June, 85,000. The pattern continued, month after month, accelerating, relentless, the way a pan fire grows when you fail to cut the oxygen. 1.6 million. Dolores said quietly. Gone in 18 months. Only 300,000 remains. The coffee shop dissolved into white noise. Conversations. The espresso machine. A child laughing at a nearby table. All of it fading behind the numbers on that page. Where did it go? I asked. Though part of me sensed the answer would be worse than simple theft. Dolores pulled a second document. A forensic accounting report she had commissioned 3 weeks ago at her own expense. I traced the money through secondary accounts and shell transfers. It took my forensic specialist 2 weeks to unravel. She met my eyes. 73% went to credit card payments. 14 different cards. All maxed. Nordstrom, Saks, Fifth Avenue, Net-a-Porter, Amazon. 847 orders in 18 months. The remaining funds went to 2 private lending companies. High interest. The kind that charges 40% annually. She has been borrowing to pay borrowing, Arthur. A collapsing structure. Shopping, I said. The word felt absurd. Small. Inadequate for the scale of destruction it represented. Compulsive spending, Dolores corrected. The amounts suggest addiction-level behavior. Last month alone, she spent $92,000 across 6 platforms in a single week. She paused. There is more. She pulled a property document from the bottom of the stack. She took out a second mortgage on your house. 3 months ago. Forged your signature. Approved for $185,000. The money is already gone. Same pattern. Same cards. She mortgaged my house. Your house, Arthur. The house you and June built your life in. She forged your name. I have the document. The signature is close, but wrong. The A leans differently. A handwriting analyst could confirm it in 10 minutes. I stared at my name in someone else's hand. Close, but not mine. A chef signs every ticket that leaves his kitchen. Every order. Every plate. I know my own mark. And this was not it. Dolores closed the folder. Placed both hands flat on the table the way I place mine on a cutting board before beginning a difficult prep. Arthur. June saved every penny for 18 years. She drove that Honda until the transmission died. She packed your lunch every single day so she could put an extra $15 into that fund each week. She did it so Sophie would have choices. I know. Mia burned through it in a year and a half on handbags and shoes and debt payments for more handbags and more shoes. And she needed nobody asking questions about where Sophie actually was. Because if anyone checked, if anyone called that school, if anyone demanded to visit Santa Fe, the whole thing unravels, I finished. Dolores nodded. The fund, the spending, the forgery, everything. I understood then. Not just what Mia had done, but why Sophie was upstairs. My granddaughter was not locked in that room because Mia was cruel. Not only because she was cruel. Sophie was locked in that room because Sophie was the evidence. A living, breathing receipt that proved the education money was never spent on education. The moment anyone confirmed Sophie was not in Santa Fe, every dollar of debt, every forged signature, every lie would cascade into collapse. My granddaughter was not just a prisoner. She was a secret. The kind of secret that costs $1.6 million to keep. Dolores reached across the table and gripped my wrist. What are you going to do, Arthur? I looked at her. This woman who loved June like a sister. Who had tracked numbers the way a chef tracks temperatures. Who spent her own money because something tasted wrong. I am going to get my granddaughter out of that room. And I am going to make sure every dollar is accounted for. She pushed the folder toward me. Take this. Keep it somewhere safe. Not in the house. I took the folder. Slid it into my jacket. Light as paper. Heavy as 18 years of June skipping vacations and packing lunches and whispering into the dark. For Sophie. All of it. For Sophie. I drove home with the folder locked in my glove compartment. The same compartment where I kept my best paring knife. Sharp things require careful handling. Evidence is the same. You do not slice until the moment is right. And the moment was coming. That same Sunday afternoon, I stood at the kitchen counter, sliding rosemary sprigs beneath the skin of chicken thighs. Marinating requires patience. You score the meat. You layer the aromatics. You give the flavors time to penetrate before applying heat. I was thinking about timing. About when to call the police. About how many more ingredients I needed before this recipe was complete. The knock came at the back door at 3:45. 3 solid raps. Heavy. Deliberate. Not Mia's rhythm. She knocked quick and light like a timer pinging. This was knuckles with weight behind them. The knock of a man who had made a decision. Tom Clearwater stood on the back step, holding an iPad pressed against his chest like a shield. His face was gray. Not sick gray. Troubled gray. The gray of a man carrying something he should have set down months ago. Tom had lived next door for 12 years. 69. Retired Memphis Fire Department after 32 years. Solid. Quiet. The kind of man who waved from his driveway and helped you carry groceries when it rained, but never appeared unannounced, looking like he had swallowed a coal. Art, can I come in? There is something you need to see. I led him to the kitchen table. He set the iPad down between the salt cellar and the rosemary cutting board. His jaw worked side to side the way it does when a man is choosing his first words carefully. My Ring doorbell camera covers my side yard and part of yours, he said. Specifically the area where your back staircase goes up to the second floor. I have had it 2 years. Never paid much attention to what it picked up from your side until about 6 months ago, when I noticed something repeating. He tapped the screen. The image was night vision. Green-gray. The frame showed the exterior back staircase. 12 steps rising along the side of the house to the second-floor landing. The same steps I built in 1995 from pressure-treated pine. The same steps Mia climbed every night at 1:43 while I lay in bed counting. This is from last Tuesday, Tom said. 2:11 in the morning. He pressed play. A figure appeared at the base of the stairs. Mia. Unmistakable, even in night vision. She carried a tray covered with a kitchen towel. Climbed quickly, paused at the top. The faint green glow of a keypad. Door opened. She disappeared inside. Tom fast-forwarded. 24 minutes later, the door opened. Mia emerged. No. Tray. She descended and vanished from frame. Every night, Art. Tom's voice was flat, controlled. The way firefighters speak during active scenes. Sometimes twice, for 6 months straight. Always between 11 and 3. Always carrying something up. Food. Bags. What looks like laundry sometimes. He swiped through video after video. Different dates. Same pattern. Same staircase. Same woman climbing in darkness. She comes down with small trash bags, he continued. Plastic grocery bags tied at the top, like bathroom waste. Then Tom paused. His finger hovered over one file. He looked at me with something close to pain. The expression of a man who has been arguing with himself for weeks and finally lost. This one is from October 15th. 2:11 in the morning. October 15th. Sophie's birthday. She turned 9. He pressed play. Mia appeared at the base of the stairs, carrying something different from the usual tray. A small round cake. White frosting visible, even in green-gray night vision. On top, the faint flicker of candles. Small flames dancing against the dark. She climbed carefully. Slowly. Protecting the flames from the breeze the way you protect a soufflé from a slammed door. At the top, she paused. Keypad. Door opened. The candlelight flickered and disappeared inside. She baked a birthday cake, I said. My voice did not sound like mine. It sounded like it belonged to someone watching this happen from very far away. Tom nodded. At 2 in the morning, carried it up those stairs with candles lit. Alone. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and raw chicken. Normal smells for a Sunday afternoon. But nothing was normal. My daughter-in-law had carried a birthday cake up a staircase at 2 in the morning to a room she told everyone contained toxic chemicals. A room holding a child who was supposed to be painting sunsets in New Mexico. 3 birthdays. 7. 8. 9. All celebrated in silence behind a sealed door, while the rest of the world slept. Tom set the iPad down. One more thing, Art. September 3rd. 3:22 in the morning. He pressed play. The staircase was empty. But the second-floor window beside the landing was visible in frame. For 8 seconds, nothing moved. Then movement behind the glass. Quick. Small. A child's silhouette. Hands pressed flat against the window. Face close to the glass. Looking out at the night sky. Then gone. Pulled back. 2 seconds of visibility before disappearing, as though someone realized they were not supposed to be seen. Or as though the child knew that being seen meant something bad would follow. I gripped the edge of the kitchen table. My knuckles went white against oak. The same oak I cut and joined 30 years ago. I saw that live on my phone, Tom said. 3 in the morning. I almost called you right then. Almost called police. But I convinced myself it was a curtain. A shadow. A trick of the camera compression. He exhaled hard through his nose. I wanted it to be nothing, because the alternative was something I did not know how to carry. Why now? I asked. Because Wednesday I saw Graciela leaving your house fast, looking upset. Thursday your kitchen light stayed on until 3 in the morning. Friday you went through your recycling bins at 6 a.m. He met my eyes. I realized you already knew something was wrong. And I was done being a coward about what my camera has been showing me for 6 months. He pulled a USB drive from his shirt pocket, placed it on the table beside the rosemary stems. Small, black, lighter than a sprig of thyme. 187 files, he said. Time-stamped, dated, organized. I picked up the drive, held it in my palm. 6 months of evidence. 6 months of Mia climbing those stairs in darkness. 3 birthday cakes nobody sang over. 3 sets of candles blown out in silence. And 1 small silhouette pressing hands against glass for 2 seconds before vanishing back into a room that should not have held anything alive. 3 birthdays. 3 cakes carried up at 2 in the morning. Nobody clapped. Nobody took photos. Nobody watched her close her eyes and wish. But she must have wished. Children always wish. And standing in that kitchen with Tom's USB drive in my palm, I made a wish of my own. That every candle Sophie blew out alone in that room carried the same prayer. That someone would come. That someone would open that door for a reason other than delivering food. My granddaughter was reaching for the outside world through a window at 3 in the morning. And the outside world was finally reaching back. Monday night, the house went dark at 10:20. Mia's door closed. Her television murmured for 15 minutes, then fell silent. I waited 30 minutes more before opening my laptop in the kitchen with the screen brightness turned low and headphones plugged in. The family shared drive held 3 years of Sunday phone calls. 156 audio files organized by date. Mia recorded every one. For memories, she said. So Sophie can listen back someday and hear how much we loved her even from far away. It seemed thoughtful at the time. Now it seemed like evidence she never expected anyone to examine with trained ears. I opened the most recent call. 3 weeks ago. Sophie's voice filled my headphones. Bright. Cheerful. Hi, Grandpa. How is the rosemary doing? Did you make that lemon chicken you told me about? She remembered the lemon chicken from 2 calls prior. That seemed real. That seemed like Sophie. But I was not listening the way a grandfather listens anymore. I was listening the way a chef listens to a sauce reducing. For the moment, the bubble pattern changes. For the instant, the consistency shifts from where it should be to where it should not. I played the call again. This time, I listened for texture. For the qualities that make a voice human, rather than merely accurate. Sophie laughed at one point when I told her about a squirrel stealing tomatoes from the garden. The laugh was correct in tone, correct in timing, but it did not break. A 9-year-old's laugh cracks. It splits at the top, the way a meringue cracks when you overwhip it. Hits a pitch that is slightly uncontrolled because children cannot regulate their vocal cords the way adults do. This laugh was smooth, even, produced, rather than erupted. I opened a call from 6 months ago. Same observation. The voice never cracked, never caught, never stumbled over a word, or coughed mid-sentence, or paused to swallow. In 156 calls spanning 3 years, Sophie never once cleared her throat, never sneezed, never spoke with food in her mouth, or while yawning, or while walking upstairs out of breath. Every syllable was clean, measured, delivered with a consistency that no living child maintains across 3 years of weekly conversations. I opened a real recording, a video from Sophie's 6th birthday. The last one before she supposedly left. June held the camera. Sophie was opening presents on the kitchen floor, narrating each gift with breathless excitement. Oh, Grandpa, look, it is a paint set and it has the gold color I wanted, and the brushes are the fat kind I like. Her voice in that video was chaos. Beautiful chaos. Words tumbling over each other. Pitch rising and falling without control. Breathing between phrases at random intervals because 6-year-olds do not plan their breaths. They just talk until the air runs out and then gasp and keep going. The girl on the Sunday calls did not breathe like that. Did not stumble. Did not gasp. Did not exist the way a child exists in the messy, uncontrolled fullness of real speech. She existed the way a recipe exists on paper. Perfect, clean, and completely without the heat and smoke and chaos of actual cooking. I thought about the test I had already conducted without fully realizing it. 2 Sundays ago, during our weekly call, I mentioned June's secret birthday cake. Casually, the way you mention something to see if the other person catches the detail. "Oh, sweetheart," I said. "I was thinking about making Grandma June's birthday cake next month for the anniversary of her passing. Do you remember that cake?" The voice on the phone responded immediately. "Oh, I love that cake, Grandpa. It was so good." "I miss it." Correct answer. Appropriate sentiment. But empty. Completely empty. Because the real Sophie would not have said it was so good. The real Sophie would have said, "Grandpa, the one with the lavender and the lemon that makes the whole kitchen smell purple," because that is what Sophie said every single time June baked it. She called it the purple smell cake, a name she invented at age 5 because lavender plus lemon equaled purple in her synesthetic 6-year-old mind. The voice on the phone did not know about the purple smell, did not know about lavender or lemon, did not know the thing that only 3 people in the world knew. Me, June, and Sophie. I closed the laptop. Sat in darkness. The kitchen clock ticked. Above me through the ceiling. Somewhere in that sealed room, a real girl slept. A girl whose voice had been stolen. Sampled. Fed into software that learned to mimic her speech patterns well enough to fool a grandfather who wanted to believe. Well enough to fool a father who called every Sunday from Denver and never thought to question why his daughter's laugh never cracked the way it used to. I picked up my phone at 11:47. Late. But this could not wait another night. I called Brendan. He answered on the 3rd ring. Groggy. Confused. "Dad, everything okay? It is almost midnight." "Son." I kept my voice level. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to think before answering." A pause. The sound of blankets shifting. Him, sitting up. "Okay. What is it? When was the last time you saw Sophie in person? Not on a phone." "In person." Touched her. Held her hand. Smelled her hair. Silence. 5 seconds. 7. "Dad, what is this about? Just answer me, Brendan. Please." More silence. I could hear him searching his memory for something he had never thought to question. 3 years ago, he said slowly, when Mia drove her to Santa Fe. I was going to visit at Thanksgiving the first year. But Mia said the school discourages family visits during the adjustment period. Then I kept planning to go but work. His voice trailed away. "Brendan, listen carefully. Something is not right. I cannot explain everything tonight, but I need you to trust me. Do not say anything to Mia. Do not change your routine. Can you do that? Dad, you are scaring me." "I know. Trust me the way you trusted your mother. The way she trusted her instincts about people." Quiet. Then softly. "Okay, Dad. I trust you." I ended the call. Dialed one more number. Detective Ruth Alvarez. Dolores had given me her card that morning. Special victims. 22 years. A woman who understood what sealed doors and forged signatures meant. She answered on the 2nd ring despite the hour. "Detective Alvarez. This is Arthur Whitfield. I have evidence of a child being held against her will in my home, financial fraud, forged documents, and voice manipulation that will require your forensic team to verify." A pause. Then, "Tell me everything, Mr. Whitfield." I did. Every cent, every receipt, every file on that USB drive, every call, that never cracked the way a child's voice should. And when I finished, Alvarez said 3 words. Wednesday, 7 a.m. I hung up, sat in my dark kitchen. 2 more nights, 48 hours. Above me through the ceiling my granddaughter breathed. 2 more nights of her breathing alone up there. 2 more nights of baby powder and silence and crayons and whatever thin life she had built inside those walls. I had held this secret for 5 days. She had held it for 3 years. 2 more nights was nothing to me. But to her it was 2 more mornings of pressing her ear against the floor and listening to her grandfather make coffee and wondering if today would be the day someone came. I have held 3 years, I told Alvarez. 2 nights is nothing. But it was not nothing. It was everything. Because every hour she spent alone in that room was an hour I could never give back. Tuesday night, 11:30. The house held its breath. Mia's door had closed at 10:15. Her television died at 10:40. I gave her 50 minutes more. Then I rose from bed in the dark, did not turn on a light, did not put on shoes. To code. A bare feet. On hardwood. The way a chef moves through his kitchen after hours. By memory. By instinct. By the map written into his muscles from 10,000 repetitions. I went downstairs. The kitchen was dark except for the green glow of the microwave clock. 11:41. I did not turn on the overhead light. Instead, I opened the oven and set it to 325 degrees. The heating element clicked once, then began its slow orange climb toward temperature. The only light in the room. A warm amber glow from inside the oven that painted the floor in a rectangle of soft fire. Enough to see by. Enough to cook by. Enough. I pulled ingredients from the cabinet by touch. Flour. Sugar. Baking powder. Salt. From the refrigerator. Butter. Eggs. Heavy cream. From the spice shelf above the stove, the 3 ingredients that made this recipe. June's and nobody else's. A glass jar of Madagascar vanilla beans. A small tin of dried culinary lavender from the herb farm on Natchez Trace. And 3 lemons from the fruit bowl on the counter. Their zest. Only their zest. The oils trapped in the yellow skin that release when you drag them across a microplane. The smell that June called bottled sunlight. I began. Creaming butter and sugar in the stand mixer at low speed so the sound would not carry. Cracking eggs one-handed into the bowl the way I had done 100,000 times across 4 decades. Folding flour in thirds. The lavender went in crushed between my fingers, releasing its purple perfume into the batter like a whispered secret. The vanilla bean I split lengthwise with a paring knife, scraped the seeds into the cream, and watched them scatter like black stars in a white sky. Then the lemons. I zested all 3, the microplane whispering against yellow skin, and the smell rose immediately. Sharp. Bright. Alive. The smell Sophie called purple when she was 5, because lavender plus lemon equaled something her small brain could only describe as a color. The purple smell cake. Grandpa. The one that makes the whole kitchen smell like a color. I folded the zest into the batter. Poured it into the round pan I greased with butter and dusted with flour the way June taught me the first time we baked together in 1987. Slid the pan into the oven, closed the door, and waited. The cake baked for 34 minutes. I sat on the kitchen floor in the dark, with my back against the lower cabinets, and watched the oven glow and smelled the kitchen fill. Slowly, gradually. The way a symphony builds from a single note into something that fills every corner of a room. First the butter. Rich. Golden. Then the sugar caramelizing at the edges. Then the vanilla. Deep and warm. Then the lavender. Soft and floral. And finally the lemon zest, cutting through everything else like a high, clear note above a chord. By 2 o'clock, the kitchen was saturated. The smell had nowhere else to go except up. Through the vent above the stove. Through the ductwork that connected my kitchen to the room directly above. The same path that had carried baby powder down to me every morning for 3 years. Tonight, it would carry something up. A message. In the only language Sophie and I had ever truly shared. 2:15. The cake was cooling on the counter. The oven clicked off. The kitchen fell into silence. So complete, I could hear my own heartbeat against my ribs. I sat on the cold tile floor directly beneath the vent and I waited. The way a chef waits for a soufflé to rise, without moving, without breathing too hard. Trusting the science, trusting the heat, trusting that what you put in will eventually come out transformed. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Nothing. The house breathed around me. The refrigerator hummed. A pipe ticked somewhere in the walls. But from above, nothing. I closed my eyes, pressed my palms flat against the tile floor. Cool. Solid. And then, tap, 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 tap. 9. I counted them the way you count heartbeats on a monitor. Each one distinct, each one deliberate. Each one the weight of a small hand or foot striking wood from above. 9 taps, not 8, not 7. 9. Because Sophie was 9 years old. Because the pattern had not died in 3 years of silence. Because somewhere above my kitchen, a child who had not spoken to me in her own voice for 1,095 days had smelled her grandmother's cake rising through a vent and remembered. Remembered what 9 meant. Remembered what tapping meant. Remembered that below her floor there was a man who would understand. My hands pressed harder against the tile. Tears ran down my face and hit the floor between my fingers. Silent. A chef does not make noise when he works. I curled my right hand into a fist and knocked against the floor. 9 times. Steady. Measured. Each knock a word I could not speak out loud. I am here. I hear you. I know you are real. Silence above. 10 seconds. 20. Then 3 taps. Light. Quick. 1, 2, 3. The old pattern. The one from before. The one that meant good night and I love you and I know you are down there, Grandpa. 3 taps that a 6-year-old invented and a 9-year-old still remembered. Because some languages do not fade, no matter how long you go without speaking them. I knocked 3 times back. Pressed my forehead against the cold tile. Whispered into the floor the way you whisper into a phone when you do not want anyone else to hear. Tomorrow morning, sweetheart. People are coming. Good people. They will open that door and you will come downstairs and I will make you breakfast. Real breakfast. At this table. I promise you. On Grandma June's name. Silence. Then 1 more tap. Single. Soft. The quietest sound I have ever heard. An okay. And I believe you. And I will wait. I sat up. Pulled myself against the oven. Its residual warmth soaked through my shirt and into my spine. The cake sat on the counter cooling, filling the kitchen with lavender and lemon and vanilla, the purple smell. Filling the vent above the stove, drifting upward through ductwork to a room where a 9-year-old girl had just tapped 9 times on a floor because her grandmother's recipe told her that her grandfather was below. That he was real. That he knew. That tomorrow was coming. I stayed on that floor all night, back against the oven that had baked the message, counting breaths through the ceiling, the way I once counted tickets during a dinner rush. 100, 200, 300. Each one, a heartbeat. Each one a confirmation that she was alive. Each one a promise that morning was coming. That the oven would open one final time, and for the first time in 3 years, what came out would be served to the person it was always meant for. 7:12 Wednesday morning. Sunlight came through the kitchen window like butter melting across a warm pan. Golden. Slow. filling every surface with a warmth that felt deliberate, as though the day itself understood what was about to happen and wanted to arrive gently. I stood on the front porch with a cup of coffee I had not tasted, and a spine that ached from a night on tile floor. My eyes had not closed since 11:30 the previous evening, but my hands were steady. A chef's hands hold steady through 18-hour services, through burns and cuts and the chaos of a full dining room sending back plates. Fatigue does not reach the hands, not when it matters. 3 vehicles turned onto Leiper's Fork Road at 7:14. 2 unmarked sedans, 1 patrol car. No sirens, no lights. They approached with the quiet precision of a well-run kitchen. Every element in position, every person knowing their role. Detective Ruth Alvarez emerged from the lead car. Gray blazer, badge on her belt, dark hair pulled back. Beside her, Officer Kendall. Behind them, 2 more officers and a woman in a windbreaker with forensic unit printed across the back. Alvarez walked up the driveway. Her steps were measured, unhurried. The pace of someone who has done this before and understands that rushing creates errors. Mr. Whitfield, we have the warrant. She held a folded document in her left hand. Are you ready? I set the coffee on the porch railing. I have been ready since 2 o'clock this morning. Where is she? Her bedroom is ground floor. Back hallway. Alvarez turned to Kendall. She does not go near that staircase. Kendall nodded and moved toward the rear of the house with 1 officer. Alvarez looked at me. You do not have to be present for the entry. I am going up those stairs, I said. I built them. My granddaughter is behind that door. She smelled my cake last night and knocked 9 times on the floor. I am not waiting anywhere else. We entered through the front. The hallway was dim. Morning light had not yet reached this side of the house. Mia's voice came from her bedroom, confused, rising. What is going on? Dad? What is happening? Why are there police in our driveway? Kendall intercepted her at the hallway junction. Ma'am, we have a warrant to search this property. Please, remain here. I did not look at her. I walked through the kitchen, past the counter, where the cake still sat on its cooling rack from last night, past the stove, where the vent had carried messages between floors for 3 years, out the back door to the staircase. We climbed. Alvarez, the forensic technician. Me, 12 steps. Pine treads I laid 29 years ago. I knew every sound, every protest of old wood under weight. For the last time, these stairs would carry someone upward toward that door with dread in their chest instead of dinner on a tray. The landing. The door. In daylight, it looked worse than I had imagined during all those nights lying below it. Steel. Industrial gray. A reinforced frame bolted into studs that were never meant to hold this kind of weight. The electronic keypad beside the handle glowed a steady red. A small dead eye watching. This was not a door that belonged in a home. This was a door that belonged in a vault. 12 steps above a kitchen where a grandmother once hummed hymns and a granddaughter once asked why bread needed to rest. The forensic technician connected a device to the keypad. 30 seconds of electronic cycling. A series of tones. Then a beep. The LED shifted from red to green. The deadbolt retracted with a sound like a bone cracking. Alvarez stepped aside. She understood what this moment meant. It belonged to me. I gripped the handle. Cold steel beneath my palm. I turned it. Pushed. The door swung inward. The smell came first. The way it always does. Before sight. Before sound. Before comprehension. My nose read the room in a single breath. Baby powder. Strongest note. Fresh. Applied within hours. Beneath it, crayons, wax and pigment and paper. Beneath that, milk. The faint, sour edge of dairy, left too long at room temperature. And beneath everything, the close, stale scent of air that has been breathed and rebreathed by the same small lungs for 3 years without ever being refreshed by an open window. The room was small, 12 by 10. A narrow bed against the left wall. White sheets. A thin blanket folded neatly. A small table with a lamp, 3 books, and a glass of water half empty. Against the right wall, a child's desk. Paper scattered across its surface. Crayons. Colored pencils. And on the walls. Every wall. Covering every inch from floor height to as high as small arms could reach. Drawings. Hundreds of them. Taped. Pinned. Layered over each other in places where space had run out. And among the drawings, pages torn from a book I recognized immediately. June's cookbook. The handwritten one she kept in the kitchen for 40 years. Recipes in her careful cursive, splattered with olive oil and tomato sauce. Pages Sophie had apparently studied, copied, illustrated with crayon drawings of the dishes described. A 9-year-old teaching herself to cook from her dead grandmother's notes without ever touching a stove. In the far corner where 2 walls met, pressed against the junction as though trying to disappear into the plaster, sat a child. Small, thin, brown hair tangled past her shoulders. A faded yellow shirt. Gray sweatpants that pooled around ankles too narrow to fill them. Arms wrapped around a book, clutched against her chest. June's cookbook, the real one, held the way another child might hold a teddy bear, and eyes. Brown eyes that held something older than 9 years. Something that had seen too many ceilings and not enough sky. She looked at the doorway. At the light pouring in. At Alvarez. At the forensic technician. Then at me. And I watched recognition move across her face, like sunrise moving across a field. Slow. Then all at once. "Grandpa?" Her voice was small, thin. A thread pulled too tight. "I smelled your cake last night. The purple one. Is it for me?" My knees hit the floor. The hardwood sent pain through both kneecaps, but I felt nothing except the distance between us. 8 feet. I opened my arms. She uncurled slowly, set the cookbook on the bed, stood on legs that trembled. 1 step. Another. Small. Uncertain. The way a bird tests a branch before trusting it with full weight. Then she was against my chest, arms around my neck, face buried in my shoulder, and she weighed nothing. I could feel every rib through her shirt, every vertebra beneath my palms. Bones and skin, and baby powder, and a heartbeat hammering fast enough to break through. "You came," she whispered, shaking, breaking in places a 9-year-old voice should never break. "You cooked for me, and you came." I could not speak. I lifted her, carried her down 12 steps, into the kitchen, past the cake, through the back door, into the yard. I set her feet on grass. Morning dew soaked through her thin socks. She looked down, wiggled her toes, looked up at the sky, and laughed. A sound like bells in a kitchen. A sound I had not heard in 1,095 days. 8:03 in the morning. Sophie sat in the back of an ambulance parked in my driveway. A paramedic wrapped a blood pressure cuff around her thin arm while she held my hand with her free one. She had not let go since I carried her down. Her grip was small but absolute. The grip of someone who had learned that if you release what you love, it might disappear behind a steel door and never return. "I need to call your daddy," I told her gently. "He needs to know you are safe." She looked up at me. Her eyes were enormous in her thin face. Wider than a child's eyes should be. The eyes of someone who had spent 3 years in a room where the only distance was from wall to wall. "Is Daddy going to come?" "Yes, sweetheart. He is going to come right now." I stepped 3 feet from the ambulance. Close enough that Sophie could still see me. Close enough that if she reached her hand out, she could confirm I had not vanished. I pulled out my phone and dialed Brendan. He answered before the first ring finished. He had been waiting. Since Monday night, when I told him to trust me. Since I asked when he last saw his daughter and heard the silence that followed. He had been holding his phone for 2 days, the way a surgeon holds a scalpel before the first cut. Ready. terrified. "Dad." His voice was tight, controlled. The way emergency room doctors sound when they are keeping themselves together for a patient who needs them whole. "What is happening?" "Son." I kept my voice as steady as a hand, holding a whisk through a delicate emulsion. "Sophie is here. She is alive. She is safe. She never went to Santa Fe. She has been in the house the whole time, in the room above the kitchen." Silence. Not the silence of processing. The silence of a man whose floor has just dissolved beneath his feet. 3 seconds. 5. 7. I counted them, the way I counted Sophie's taps last night. "What?" His voice cracked on the single syllable. The way a 9-year-old's voice should crack, but his daughter's never did on those Sunday calls. "What do you mean she has been in the house?" "She has been upstairs." "Brendan." Mia kept her locked in the room above the kitchen for 3 years. "Police are here now. Sophie is with paramedics. She is thin and scared. But she is alive, and she is asking for you." A sound came through the phone that I had never heard from my son, not in 40 years. A sound between a gasp and something breaking. The sound a soufflé makes when it collapses. All the air leaving at once. All the structure failing simultaneously. Then voices in the background. Someone asking if he was all right. The clatter of something dropped. A phone fumbled. "Dad." His voice returned ragged, torn at the edges. "I am coming. I am coming right now. She is at the house, but they are taking her to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. Meet us there. I am coming." I heard him moving. Running. A door slamming. The jingle of car keys. "Dad." He choked. 3 years. She was there for 3 years and He could not finish. I talked to her every week. And she was right there. And I never. His breathing fractured. "Oh God. Brendan. Listen. She is alive. She is safe. That is what matters right now. Get on a plane. Come home. She needs her father." He made that sound again. The collapsing sound. Then, "I am coming. Tell her I am coming. Tell her Daddy is coming right now." "I will." The call ended. I walked back to the ambulance. Sophie watched me approach with those enormous eyes, tracking me the way you track a candle flame in a dark room. Afraid it might go out. "Daddy is on his way, sweetheart. He is flying home right now." She nodded. Small. Quiet. Then, "Does he know I am here?" He knows now. He did not know before. Nobody knew except Mia. She processed this. 9 years old. Trying to comprehend something that no adult should have to comprehend. Then she said something that split me open clean as a paring knife through ripe fruit. I could hear him sometimes. On the phone downstairs. Talking to Mommy. Laughing. I wanted to yell, but Mommy said if I made noise, the sickness would come through the vents and hurt Grandpa. She said my voice would carry the germs down to him while he was cooking. My voice. She believed her voice could kill me. That the sound of her calling for help would poison me through the same vent that carried my coffee and my cooking up to her every morning. That she had to stay silent to keep me alive. I squeezed her hand. "There is no sickness, sweetheart. There never was. Your voice cannot hurt anyone. You can talk as loud as you want, for the rest of your life." She looked at me with those old eyes. "I know. You told me through the floor last night. I believe you, Grandpa." The ambulance took us to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. 14 minutes through Franklin into Nashville. Sophie held my hand the entire ride. The paramedics checked her vitals. Heart rate elevated. Blood pressure low. Weight significantly below normal for age 9. Mild dehydration. Possible anemia. But alive. Stable. Present. They admitted her to a private room on the 3rd floor. A window. Facing south. Afternoon light pouring through. Sophie stared at that window, the way a starving person stares at a table set for dinner. She reached toward it. Touched the glass. felt the warmth. "It is real," she whispered. "Real, son." 1 hour and 53 minutes after my phone call, the door to Sophie's room opened. Brendan stood in the frame, still in his work clothes. No coat, no bag. His architectural firm badge still clipped to his shirt. He had driven to Denver International and boarded the first Southwest flight without changing, without stopping, without breathing. His eyes found Sophie, and everything in him collapsed. She was sitting up in bed, juice box in one hand, my hand in the other. She looked at the door, at the man, standing there, shaking, at her father, who she had not seen in 3 years, who she had heard through floors and ceilings without being able to reach. "Daddy." Brendan crossed the room in 3 strides. His knees hit the floor beside her bed. He pulled her against his chest, and the sound that came from him was not crying. It was something beyond crying, something that had been building for 3 years without him knowing. Grief for a loss he never knew he suffered. Sophie wrapped her arms around his neck. Small, thin, holding on. They stayed that way for a long time. Then Sophie pulled back, looked at her father's wet face, and asked the question that would live inside him like a fishbone lodged in the throat for the rest of his life. "Daddy, why didn't you come cook for me? Grandpa cooked every morning. I could smell it through the floor. But you never came up with a plate." Brendan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing. Because what could he say? Because I believed your mother? Because I was too busy drawing buildings in Denver? Because I trusted a voice on a phone more than my own instincts? He pulled her back against his chest, held tighter, and said the only thing left. "I am here now, baby. I am here now, and I am never leaving again. And I will cook for you every single morning for the rest of my life." 5 days after we opened the door, Monday afternoon, I sat in a conference room at the Franklin Police Department on Columbia Avenue. Detective Alvarez across the table. Between us, a folder thick enough to be mistaken for a cookbook. 2 cups of coffee neither of us had touched. Alvarez looked the way people look when they have spent 5 days disassembling someone else's construction and found the blueprints uglier than expected. She opened the folder and spread documents across the table, the way I once spread mise en place before a complicated service. Every ingredient visible, every element in its place, ready to be combined into something final. "Mr. Whitfield," she said, "I want to walk you through what we have found. Some will confirm what you already know. Some will be new. None of it will be easy." I nodded. "Go ahead." She pulled the first document. A printout of a Craigslist posting recovered by digital forensics. The room was constructed by a contractor named Gary Morse out of Murfreesboro. Mia found him through Craigslist in January, 2 months before Sophie supposedly left for Santa Fe. She paid him $28,000 in cash. No contract, no permits, no record except this posting and 4 text messages recovered from his phone. She slid a screenshot across the table. Mia's message: "Needs soundproofing for a residential safe room. Tornado season preparation. Must be finished by March 1st. Homeowner travels 2nd week of March. You will have 5 days." I stared at the words. 5 days. I had visited Brendan in Denver that week. Came home to find Mia had rearranged the upstairs hallway. New paint smell. She said she had the hall touched up while I was gone. I thanked her for being thoughtful. Alvarez continued. Morse installed a steel core door, electronic keypad, acoustic foam on all 4 walls and ceiling, and a basic ventilation connection to the existing HVAC ductwork. He also sealed the single window from the inside with plywood and drywall, painted to match. He completed the work in 4 days. Morse has been cooperative. He claims he believed the tornado room explanation. His text messages show he was uncomfortable with the cash-only arrangement but proceeded. "We are charging him as an accessory." She set that document aside and pulled out another. Subscription records from a service called 11 Labs, a voice cloning platform. Mia created an account March 6th. 3 days after Sophie was locked in that room, she uploaded 52 audio recordings of Sophie. Birthday videos, family dinners, playground footage, Sophie singing in the car, all recorded before March. The platform used these samples to generate a synthetic voice capable of real-time conversation. She showed me the account details. Monthly subscription, $22. Active for 35 months, without interruption. The voice model was updated quarterly, with adjusted pitch parameters to simulate aging. Mia could type responses on her phone, and the software would speak them aloud in Sophie's voice. Or she could use a preset conversation mode that responded to common prompts with pre-written answers. I thought of those Sunday calls. The voice that never cracked. The laugh that never broke. The answers that came too smoothly. All generated. All synthesized. All purchased for less than the cost of a streaming subscription. 3 years of a grandfather saying, "I love you, sweetheart," to $22 worth of software. Alvarez let that settle before continuing. She pulled out the financial documentation. This confirms what Dolores Kwan reported. Sophie's education trust, established by your late wife, totaled $1.9 million. Since Mia gained sole access 18 months ago, $1.6 million has been withdrawn. She unfolded a spreadsheet. Our forensic accountant traced every dollar. 73% went directly to credit card payments across 14 different accounts. She listed them. Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue, Net-a-Porter, Amazon, Neiman Marcus. The total purchase history across all platforms shows 847 individual orders in 18 months. Clothing, handbags, shoes, jewelry, cosmetics. The spending pattern is consistent with compulsive buying disorder at an extreme level. Last month alone, she placed 41 orders, totaling $68,000. She paused. 15% of the withdrawn funds went to maintaining Sophie's confinement. Groceries, supplies, the contractor payment, the 11 Labs subscription, a security camera she installed inside the room to monitor Sophie remotely from her phone. I had not known about the camera. My stomach turned at the thought. Watching her. From a phone. The way you watch a security feed of an empty building. The remaining 12% went to 2 private lending companies, high interest, 40% annually. She had been borrowing against Sophie's trust to pay interest on previous borrowings from the same trust. A collapsing structure, funding its own collapse. Alvarez pulled another document. The mortgage forgery on your property. $185,000. Approved 3 months ago. The signature analysis confirms it is not yours. Different pressure pattern, different letter spacing. The funds were dispersed within 72 hours of approval. All gone into the same credit card payments. She paused again. One more thing. 6 months ago, Mia applied for a life insurance policy on Sophie, named herself as sole beneficiary. $250,000. The application was flagged and denied because she could not produce a current pediatrician's examination or signature. The conference room felt too small. The fluorescent lights too bright. A life insurance policy. On a child, she was starving in a locked room. Alvarez must have read my face. She closed that section and folded her hands on the table. Mr. Whitfield. In 22 years of investigations, I have seen impulsive crimes, crimes of passion, crimes of opportunity. But this, she shook her head. This was not impulsive. This was constructed. Layer by layer. System by system. Every contingency planned. Every witness neutralized. Every exit sealed. If your housekeeper had not smelled that powder, if Sophie had not knocked on that floor when she smelled your cake, this could have continued indefinitely. I sat with that word. Indefinitely. A recipe with no endpoint. No final plating. No moment where the chef steps back and says the dish is complete. Just endless reduction, boiling down and down until nothing remained. She did not act in a moment of madness, I said. Alvarez met my eyes. No. She followed a recipe. Every ingredient measured. Every step timed. Every variable controlled. Architecture, I said, remembering Dolores's word from that Sunday at the coffee shop. Alvarez nodded. That is exactly what this was. A recipe for deception built to run forever. And the only reason it stopped is because a 9-year-old girl smelled lavender and lemon through a vent and remembered what it meant. Alvarez led me down the hallway to a second room. Smaller. A long table covered with clear plastic evidence bags arranged in rows like ingredients laid out before a banquet. Each bag held paper. Drawings. Hundreds of them, organized chronologically by the forensic team based on paper type and developmental markers. Even through the plastic, the colors were vivid. Crayon, marker, colored pencil, some on white printer paper, some on the backs of envelopes, some on pages carefully removed from June's cookbooks, the printed recipes on one side used as reading material, and the blank margins on the reverse used for art. Dr. Rena Shah arrived 4 minutes later. 39. Dark eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses. A calm that suggested years of practice, sitting with difficult truths. She carried a tablet and a thin folder. Mr. Whitfield. She shook my hand. Thank you for coming. I know this week has been beyond anything a person should process. I nodded. Detective Alvarez said you wanted me to see these. Yes. She moved to the head of the table. What you are looking at is 267 drawings created by Sophie over approximately 3 years. They were cataloged from the walls and surfaces of the room during evidence processing. I have been analyzing them as part of my psychological assessment. She gestured to the first row. These are the earliest works, created when Sophie was approximately 6. Shortly after, confinement began. The motor control is age-appropriate. Simple shapes, basic figures. The emotional content is primarily confusion. I looked. Stick figures. A large rectangle that might be a door. Dark colors pressed hard into paper. The marks of a frightened child with nothing to push against except a crayon and a page. Shaw moved to the second row. By the end of the first year, her work changes dramatically. The figures become detailed. Proportions improve. She is developing skill at an accelerated rate because drawing is one of only 2 activities available to her, the second being reading. I saw it. The stick figures had become recognizable. A tall man at a counter. Something in his hands. Steam rising from what appeared to be a pot. A rectangular shape on the wall behind him. A vent. These subjects repeat throughout the entire collection, Shaw said. She tapped her tablet, pulling up categories. 89 drawings depict a male figure in a kitchen setting, always cooking, always with steam or smoke rising from his hands. 34 drawings show a rectangular shape on a wall or ceiling that appears to be a ventilation grate, often with wavy lines emerging from it, representing scent or heat or air. She paused. And 178 drawings contain a single recurring element that I have not seen in any other case in my career. She lifted an evidence bag from the middle section. Through the plastic, I could see it clearly. A drawing in colored pencil, detailed for a child's work. A kitchen viewed from above, as though the artist were looking down through the ceiling. A man stood at a stove. Pots, releasing colored steam. And floating upward from the pots, through what appeared to be a ceiling, shapes that resembled food. A plate, a bowl, a cake, rising through solid matter like ghosts, passing through the barrier between the kitchen below and the room above, reaching toward a small figure lying on a bed, with arms extended downward as though trying to catch the floating plates. Food passing through the ceiling. Shaw said quietly. 178 drawings of food, rising from her grandfather's kitchen, through the floor into her room, as though she believed that if she drew it enough times it would become real, that the meals she could smell but never taste would eventually find their way through the barrier. I gripped the edge of the table. My knuckles went white against metal. Shaw continued. Sophie's language development is approximately 14 months behind age-appropriate norms for conversational speech. This is consistent with prolonged isolation and limited verbal interaction. However, she looked at me. Her reading comprehension tests at 7th grade level, significantly above her age. She taught herself to read from the books in that room, your wife's cookbooks primarily. She read every recipe, memorized techniques, understood measurements and terminology that most adults struggle with. She can explain the Maillard reaction. She knows what a roux is. She understands tempering chocolate, June's books, left on a shelf in what was once a guest room, forgotten by everyone except the child who had nothing else. Shaw set the drawing down and picked up another bag. This one showed the kitchen man from a different angle. Closer, more detailed. The figure was smiling, holding something toward the ceiling. A plate with food on it. Arms extended upward, as though offering the meal to someone above. This was drawn approximately 18 months into confinement, Shaw said. Notice the progression. In earlier drawings, the food floats up on its own, magically. By this point, the grandfather figure is actively lifting it, sending it up. The child's narrative shifted from hope to belief. She was no longer wishing the food would reach her. She believed her grandfather was trying to send it to her, that he knew she was there and was attempting to feed her through the ceiling. I pressed both hands flat on the table, steadied myself the way I steady a cutting board before working. She believed I was trying to feed her. She thought I knew. Shaw's voice was gentle. In her reality, the cooking she smelled every morning was your attempt to reach her. She did not understand that you were unaware. She believed you were sending love upward through the vent in the only language your family speaks. Food. I closed my eyes. Every morning for 3 years I stood in that kitchen making coffee and breakfast and dinner. And 12 feet above me a child smelled it all and believed it was for her. Believed I was cooking toward her, sending nourishment up through the ceiling the way you send a message in a bottle across water. She thought my cooking was communication, and in a way she was right. It was. I just did not know it yet. Shaw closed her tablet. Mr. Whitfield, your wife left her cookbooks in that room without knowing what they would become. Sophie read them the way a drowning person reads a life raft instruction manual. She memorized every recipe your wife ever wrote. She studied the margin notes, the ingredient substitutions, the small drawings June made beside certain recipes, hearts next to favorites, stars beside the ones she made for holidays. Sophie knows your wife's cooking as intimately as you do, perhaps more intimately, because she read those pages every single day for 3 years. 2 women, 2 kitchens, one in memory, one in captivity. June left behind the language of food in a room she never knew would become a cell. And Sophie used that language to survive. Read it. Studied it. Drew it rising through ceilings. Made it real in her mind, because making it real in her hands was impossible. My wife saved my granddaughter without knowing she needed saving. From beyond death. Through recipes written 20 years ago. Through margins, notes, and hand-drawn hearts, and the particular love that lives inside a cookbook kept by a woman who believed that feeding people was the highest form of prayer. 4 months after the door opened, the Williamson County Courthouse stood white and angular under a February sky, the color of brushed steel. I wore the charcoal vest June picked out for our 35th anniversary, the last piece of clothing she ever bought for me. I wore it because she should have been here, because some part of her was. Brendan sat to my left in a navy blazer. His hands folded in his lap so tightly, his knuckles had gone the color of raw dough. Sophie was not present. Dr. Shaw had testified in a pretrial hearing that exposing a 9-year-old to the woman who imprisoned her would constitute further psychological harm. The judge agreed. Sophie stayed home with Dolores, baking banana bread from June's recipe, unaware that today, a courtroom would decide what 3 years of silence was worth. The gallery held maybe 70 people. Reporters filled the first 2 rows on the left. Neighbors. Friends. Strangers who had followed the story through local news and then national coverage when it spread beyond Tennessee in November. I recognized Tom in the fourth row, arms crossed, jaw set like a man, watching a structure he failed to inspect collapse in real time. Graciela sat near the back in a blue cardigan, hands folded in her lap like someone praying, without wanting to be seen. Mia entered from a side door in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed in front. She had lost weight. Her hair hung flat against her shoulders without the careful styling I had grown accustomed to over 5 years. She did not look at me. Did not look at Brendan. She looked straight ahead at the bench, with the expression of someone who had decided this was happening in a different room to a different person. Prosecutor Maya Okafor stood. She was tall, precise in movement, the kind of presence that reminded me of a head chef calling orders during a full-service rush. Controlled authority. Every word measured. She opened with a single sentence. For 1,095 days, Mia Whitfield told a 6-year-old child that the air outside her room was poisoned and that her own voice would carry disease through the vents and kill her grandfather. The courtroom went silent. Not the silence of an empty room, the silence of 80 people holding their breath simultaneously. Okafor built her case methodically, one piece at a time, fitted together with the precision of a tasting menu where every course builds on the last. She introduced Gary Morse first. He took the stand in khakis and a button-down that did not fit his neck properly. Confirmed he was paid $28,000 in cash. Confirmed the soundproofing. The steel door. The keypad. Said Mia told him tornado safe room. Said he believed her until he saw the news 4 months later and had to pull his truck over on Interstate 65 because he could not see through the tears. Next came the digital evidence. A forensic audio analyst named Dr. Karen Hu displayed spectrograms of Sunday phone calls, side by side, with recordings of Sophie's actual voice from before confinement. She played them for the jury. The synthetic version first. Smooth. Even. Consistent pitch. Then the real Sophie. At age 6. Chaotic. Breathless. Cracking on high notes. Stumbling over syllables. Alive in the way only an uncontrolled child's voice can be alive. The difference was immediate. Visceral. Several jurors shifted in their seats. Dolores testified about the money. She displayed bank records, transaction histories, credit card statements projected onto a screen in columns that scrolled for 3 full minutes. $1.6 million. 847 orders. 14 credit cards. She presented each number the way a chef presents a bill of goods. Cold. Clear. Undeniable. Patricia had been right about Dolores. Numbers were her kitchen, and she ran it flawlessly. Detective Alvarez took the stand for 70 minutes. She walked the jury through the timeline. From Graciela's call to the moment forensics cracked the keypad. She played 3 audio recordings. The first was Mia telling Gary Morse the room was for tornado preparation. The second was a voicemail Mia left for Brendan 2 weeks before the rescue, cheerfully describing Sophie's supposed art exhibition in Santa Fe. The third was my voice through the kitchen floor on Tuesday night, whispering "Tomorrow morning, sweetheart," followed by one single tap from above. Sophie's tap. Her okay. A woman in juror seat 6 pressed her hand over her mouth. The man beside her closed his eyes. Okafor delivered her closing in 9 minutes. She stood 5 feet from the jury and spoke without notes. Sophie drew 267 pictures in that room, she said. 89 of them show her grandfather cooking in the kitchen below her. In 178 of them, food rises through the ceiling like a prayer. She could smell him every morning. She believed he was trying to feed her through the floor. She was right. He was. He just did not know it yet. She paused. Let the silence work. Mia Whitfield did not lose control. She did not act in desperation. She constructed a prison. She designed a lie. She maintained it with voice cloning software and stock photographs and forged signatures. For 3 years, she climbed those stairs at 2 in the morning and delivered food to a child she told the world was thriving in New Mexico. That is not mental illness. That is architecture. And architecture requires a blueprint. And blueprints require intent. The jury deliberated 3 hours and 20 minutes. They returned guilty on all 6 counts. Unlawful imprisonment of a minor, fraud, forgery, embezzlement, child endangerment, identity theft. Judge Caroline Mattson sentenced Mia to 20 years in the Tennessee Department of Correction with no possibility of parole for 12 years. She said one thing that would follow me home that evening and settle into the walls of my kitchen like the smell of a dish you will never forget. She looked at Mia and said, "You told a child her voice was a weapon. You made silence her only option for survival. You told her the world would die if she spoke. That is not motherhood. That is not protection. That is ownership. And this court does not recognize your claim." Mia showed no reaction. She was led through the side door. Gone. Brendan exhaled beside me. A long, slow breath like steam releasing from a covered pot. I put my hand on his shoulder. He put his hand on mine. We did not speak. Outside the courthouse, the February air smelled like cedar smoke and cold earth. Tom gripped my hand without a word. Graciela hugged me and whispered, "June is proud." I nodded because my throat would not open for words. That night, I sat at the kitchen table. 11:15. Coffee gone cold hours ago. The ceiling above me silent, empty, honest. For the first time in 3 years. No heartbeat, no breathing, no small body curled in a bed 12 feet above my head. Sophie was at Brendan's apartment across town, asleep in a room with 2 windows that opened whenever she wanted. The silence above my kitchen was finally what silence should be. Just silence. Nothing hidden inside it. And honest silence. I discovered that night. Sounds like music. 18 months pass the way bread rises. Not all at once. Not in any single dramatic moment. But slowly, quietly, with a patience that transforms raw ingredients into something nourishing. Sophie turned 11 on a Saturday in October. The morning opened blue and wide over Franklin. The kind of Tennessee sky that stretches so far above the hills, it makes you believe the world has no ceilings. 80 degrees by 9. The smell of cut grass and warming pavement drifting across Main Street like the opening notes of a familiar recipe. Brendan bought a house 3 blocks from mine on Maple Lane in April. A single-story craftsman with a wide front porch and a pecan tree in the backyard that reminded me so much of the one on Leiper's Fork Road that I had to sit in my truck for a full minute the first time I saw it. He chose it deliberately. He told me later that Sophie asked for 2 things when they went looking. A tree like Grandpa's and windows that open. Every room in that house has windows that open. The kitchen has 3. The living room has 4. Emma's bedroom has 5. 5 windows facing 5 different directions. As though the builder understood that a child who lived behind sealed glass for 3 years would need every possible angle of sky. Sophie calls it the breathing room. She named it on moving day, while Brendan and I carried her bookshelf through the front door. Brendan let her choose the paint color. She picked a shade called Morning Butter, a warm yellow that glows when afternoon light hits it. She painted one wall herself with a roller too large for her hands. The streaks are still visible. Brendan will never paint over them. He told me those streaks are proof that Sophie chose something and made it real with her own hands. I understood exactly what he meant. Brendan works from home now. Left Denver and took a teaching position at Vanderbilt's architecture school so he could be present every morning and every evening. He makes Sophie breakfast at 7:15. Pancakes Mondays. Eggs and toast. Tuesday through Thursday. Cereal Fridays because Sophie says Fridays should be easy. Saturdays they come to my house and we cook together. All 3 of us in my kitchen the way it should have been for 3 years. Sophie on her step stool. Brendan measuring ingredients with the careful precision of an architect who has learned that measurements matter more than he ever understood before. Sundays they come for coffee and whatever I baked the night before. Usually June's pecan pie. Sometimes the banana bread Sophie has perfected from the recipe she memorized during those years. Always too much food. Always deliberate excess. Because this family does not cook for two anymore. We cook for abundance. For overflow. For the particular joy of having more than enough after years of not enough. But Saturdays. Saturdays are ours. Mine and Sophie's. The Franklin Farmers Market opens at 7 on Main Street. White tents lining both sides of the road. Local honey. Heirloom tomatoes. Fresh eggs from farms whose chickens have names. And at the third tent on the left side, between the lavender soap vendor and the man who sells smoked trout, a small table with a hand-painted sign that reads Grandma June's Kitchen. Sophie painted the sign herself. Yellow background. Purple letters. A small drawing of a cake in the corner with wavy lines rising from its top. The wavy lines that once meant food floating through a ceiling now mean steam rising from a fresh bake. The same symbol. Transformed. Made real. We sell 3 items. June's secret birthday cake. Lavender lemon. The purple smell cake. Our best seller. We bake 12 every Friday night, and they sell out by 9:30. Every Saturday morning. Customers come back week after week. They tell us it is the best cake they have ever tasted. They ask what makes it special. Sophie answers every time. She stands behind our table in her white apron, the same style June made from curtain fabric, though this one is new, sewn by Dolores as a birthday gift. And she says the same thing to every customer who asks. It is my grandma's recipe. She left it for me before she knew I would need it. I found it when everything else was dark. And every time I bake it, I can smell her. Right here. Like she is standing beside me telling me when to fold and when to stop. The customers smile. Some of them tear up. The ones who know the story. The ones who read the articles or watched the news segment or shared the post that went viral last spring. They buy 2 cakes instead of 1. They tell Sophie she is brave. She thanks them politely and wraps their cake in wax paper the way I taught her. Careful. Neat. Respecting the product. The way a chef respects every dish that leaves the kitchen because someone is going to put it inside their body and it should be worthy of that trust. Sophie attends Franklin Elementary now. 5th grade. Caught up and then some. Her reading level is 8th grade. Her math is 6th. She has friends. 2 girls named Lily and Ava who live on Maple Lane and ride bikes with her after school. They do not know the full story. They know Sophie lived somewhere else for a while. That is enough for 11-year-olds. They care more about whether Sophie can land a kickflip on Ava's skateboard than where she was 3 years ago. She cannot land it yet. She is working on it. Every Sunday morning, Sophie walks through my front door without knocking. She goes straight to the kitchen. She pours herself orange juice, sits at the oak table, and she does 2 things. First, she breathes in deeply through her nose, fills her lungs with whatever I have been cooking. Then she looks up at the ceiling. 2 seconds. Maybe 3. Then she looks at me and says, "Good morning, Grandpa." And we begin our day. I asked her once why she looks up. She said, "I am making sure it smells like nothing." I said, "It will always smell like nothing now." She said, "I know, but I like to smell the nothing. It is my favorite smell now." Dr. Shaw told me this small ritual may continue for years, perhaps for life. She said it is not fear. It is Sophie confirming her own freedom. The way a bird released from a cage still glances at the open door, not because it fears going back, but because remembering what out feels like is part of staying out. I understand that. I still press my palm against the kitchen ceiling some mornings when nobody is watching. I press, and I listen, and I hear nothing. And the nothing still sounds like music. Our music. Mine and Sophie's. The song of an empty room above a full kitchen. The silence that means everyone is exactly where they are supposed to be. Fed. Free. Found. That is our girl. Our brave, beautiful girl who learned to cook her way back to life. I am 68 years old now. 2 years since I opened that door. 730 mornings of cooking breakfast for a girl who sits at my table, who eats with both hands, who laughs with her mouth full and does not apologize. 730 mornings of proof that the worst thing I ever did was trust silence. I want to tell you what I learned. Not because I am wise. A wise man would have opened that door in the first week. A wise man would have climbed those stairs the moment his housekeeper said the word powder. I am not wise. I am a cook, and cooks learn by burning themselves. So here is what the fire taught me. Lesson 1. Trust your senses before you trust someone's story. 40 years behind a stove trained my nose to detect the difference between butter and margarine at 20 feet. To know when garlic has 7 seconds left before it turns bitter. To smell rain coming through a closed window. But when Mia told me that sealed room contained toxic wood preservative, I believed her. I believed her words over my own nose. I chose the comfort of explanation over the discomfort of investigation. Every one of us has a sense that speaks to us. A gut feeling, a smell that seems wrong, a sound at 2 in the morning that we explain away as the house settling. Stop explaining it away. Your senses are older than language. They were keeping humans alive long before words existed. If something smells wrong, it is wrong. Trust the body before the mouth. Lesson 2. Silence is not the same as peace. For 3 years my house was quiet. Mia smiled. The bills appeared. Paid. Sophie called every Sunday. I told myself this was peace. I told myself that after June died, the universe owed me some calm. But silence is not peace. Silence is the absence of information. And when someone benefits from your ignorance, they will build silence around you like soundproofing. They will pad the walls. They will seal the vents. They will hand you a story so comfortable that questioning it feels like ingratitude. Peace has texture. Peace has evidence. Peace can survive a question. If your peace cannot survive one honest question, it is not peace. It is a cage someone built for you while you were sleeping. Lesson 3. The people who love you will knock. Listen for the pattern. Sophie knocked on that ceiling for 3 years. 9 taps. Her age. Every single night. She knocked, and no one answered. But she never stopped. That is what love does. It keeps signaling, even when the world has gone dark. It keeps tapping even when no one taps back. The people who love you are knocking right now. Your child, who asks the same question every night. At bedtime. Your mother who calls every Sunday morning even though you never pick up. Your neighbor who waves even though you only nod. Those are knocks. Those are patterns. And patterns only mean something if someone is paying attention. Pay attention. Count the knocks. Answer them. Because one day the knocking will stop, and you will stand in a silent kitchen and realize that the most important sound in your life was the one you trained yourself to ignore. Lesson 4. It is never too late to open the door. I could have opened that door 3 years earlier. I did not. I could have questioned Mia the first month Sophie left. I did not. I could have driven to Santa Fe and visited my granddaughter in person. I did not. For 3 years I chose comfort. I chose trust. I chose the story that required nothing of me. And every single one of those days, Sophie was 12 steps above my head, drawing pictures of food floating through the ceiling because she believed her grandfather was trying to feed her through the floor. I was 3 years late, but I was not too late. The door opened. Sophie came out. The cake was baked and the table was set, and the girl who spent 1,000 days in the dark sat down in the light and ate. You are reading this. Something in your life has a sealed door. Something smells wrong and you have been telling yourself it is wood preservative. Something knocks at night, and you have been calling it the house settling. Open the door. You might be late. But late is not the same as never. And never is the only thing you cannot fix. I am a cook. I was never a hero. Heroes act on instinct. I acted on evidence. Slowly. Afraid. One ingredient at a time. But I opened the door, and on the other side was a 9-year-old girl holding her grandmother's cookbook like a life raft, smelling like baby powder and crayons and survival. She is 11 now. She bakes on Friday nights. She sells cake on Saturday mornings. She laughs with her whole body. And every Sunday she walks into my kitchen, closes her eyes, breathes in and says, "Good morning, Grandpa. What are we making today?" If you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it. If you are the person standing outside a sealed door right now, open it. And if you are the one knocking from inside, keep knocking. Someone is listening. Someone will come. Someone will smell what you are trying to say. The kitchen is open. The table is set. Come eat.